Why did Jungkook say he was just a puppet? The leaked note that shocks the world, and what it reveals about K-pop's darkest secrets. Was Jungkook ever truly free? That question alone has shattered the illusion of perfection the world once believed about BTS's youngest star. And now, with the sudden leak of what appears to be a handwritten personal note, raw, heartbreaking, and disturbingly honest, the world may finally be seeing the side of famed Jungkook was never allowed to speak about. Until now, the note, reportedly written during a late night in his military barracks, was not meant for the public. It wasn't a fan letter. It wasn't a scripted message. It was a confession. One that, if proven authentic, could change everything we thought we knew about the so-called golden magne. I was just a puppet in their system, one line reads. Since debut, I was never allowed to stop. Not even once. Every time I cried, they told me to smile harder. Was this truly Jungkook's voice? Or the sound of someone breaking after a decade of silent compliance? Industry insiders who claim to have seen the full content of the note describe it as haunting. It's not filled with anger, not filled with blame. It's filled with something far more dangerous: exhaustion. A kind of emotional numbness that suggests not just a moment of burnout, but a system-wide failure. The note reportedly continues with words that are already echoing across fan communities like a siren. I don't know what happiness means anymore. I thought music would save me, but they took even that and turned it into a product. And just like that, the veil lifts, because if Jungkook, BTS's powerhouse, the symbol of youth, beauty, and perfection, felt like a product, then what does that say about the industry that shaped him? What does that say about the people who managed him, scheduled him, pushed him to smile through sickness, through grief, through mental collapse, and more importantly, what happens now? The alleged letter wasn't just an emotional outpouring. According to those familiar with the situation, it was written during a period of deep reflection. Months into military service, removed from the cameras, fan chants, and flashing lights, Jungkook had time, real time, for the first time in over a decade. And in that silence, the truth spilled out. He never wanted to say these things out loud. He was afraid. Afraid of disappointing fans. Afraid of backlash. Afraid that even telling the truth would be twisted into another PR campaign. So instead, he wrote it down, perhaps never intending anyone to read it, but someone did. And now, the world is reading along. The reactions have been overwhelming. From shocked fans to devastated fellow idols, the emotional fallout is enormous. People are not just heartbroken, they're furious. Because for years, the narrative was clean, polished, and inspirational. BTS overcame everything, right? Poverty, doubt, haters, global barriers, they won. But what if, behind that victory, was a silent sacrifice no one wanted to acknowledge? What if Jungkook was never okay? Fans have started resurfacing old clips, moments that now seem eerie in retrospect. A quiet pause during an interview, a misstep on stage, a fake smile that didn't reach his eyes. Were these signs? Were we looking at someone screaming silently for help while being paraded as a symbol of youth and ambition? The implications stretch far beyond one member. Because if Jungkook, the youngest, the most celebrated, the most adored, was treated like this, what about the others? Was the system designed not to nurture, but to extract? To squeeze every drop of talent, charisma, and emotion until there's nothing left but a shell? And who's responsible? Was it the label? Was it the broader industry? Was it the unrelenting demands of global fame? Or was it all of us? We cheered louder. We asked for more. We streamed every track, bought every album, tracked every schedule, demanded every update. Did we ever stop to wonder what it was costing him? And what's worse, did he try to tell us before, but we didn't listen? In one of the most chilling passages from the note, Jungkook reportedly wrote, "I became the person they needed me to be. I wore their smile, sang their songs, lived their dream, but I don't know where I went in the process." That line alone has sent shockwaves, because it's not just about fatigue, it's about identity theft. When your face becomes a brand, when your emotions are turned into content, when your silence is bought and sold, what's left of you? And for Jungkook, Maybe the real question is, can he ever reclaim it? Sources say this wasn't the first time he tried to speak out. There were moments, apparently, when he pushed back, asked for a break, requested less exposure. But every time, he was met with the same response. This is what you signed up for. But did he? At 15, when Jungkook joined Big Hit, could he have possibly understood the magnitude of what he was agreeing to? Could he have known that for the next decade, his life wouldn't belong to him anymore? And now, at 27, standing on the brink of a post-military comeback, does he even want to return? That's the question no one dares to ask publicly. But behind closed doors, you can feel the fear. What if Jungkook doesn't come back? What if he walks away? What if this letter was his quiet exit? And what happens to BTS then? The group's anticipated reunion in 2025 is already being called the most historic comeback in K-pop history. But history comes at a price. And Jungkook, it seems, has been paying more than anyone ever knew. Will HYB address this? So far, there's been silence. No statements. No denials. Just a careful scrubbing of online conversations and suspicious disappearances of certain hashtags. But the internet never forgets. And this time, the truth is too big to hide. Fans have launched campaigns calling for transparency. Mental health advocacy groups are weighing in. Former idols are beginning to whisper their own truths. Something is shifting. A reckoning may be coming, but at the center of it all, Jungkook remains quiet. He hasn't confirmed the letter. He hasn't denied it either. Maybe he's waiting. Maybe he's scared. Or maybe he's finally learning that his voice, even in silence, has the power to shake an empire. And if he does speak, what would he say? Would he confirm what we fear? That his success was built on silent suffering? That his golden years were laced with quiet despair? That he smiled not out of joy, but obligation? Or would he try to protect the system one last time? Because that's who Jungkook has always been. The protector of fans, of members, of the brand. But who protected him? That question lingers unanswered, painful, and as the world waits, one truth becomes undeniable. This isn't just a scandal. It's a story about the price of perfection, about the cracks behind the curtain, and about a young man who gave everything, only to find himself asking, in the end, who he truly is, and so the silence grows louder. In a world where idols are expected to smile on command and remain silent in pain, Jungkook's possible decision to expose the psychological cost of fame is not just bold, it's revolutionary. If these alleged handwritten words are indeed his, then this is not merely the unraveling of a boy who grew up on stage. It's the unraveling of an entire industry model, long celebrated, now quietly feared. Why would he write something so raw? What pushed him to finally put pen to paper? What did he see during those nights in the military, away from the spotlight, that made him confront the truth he had buried for so long? Those close to him claim that military service gave Jungkook something he had never known before: silence. Not the empty kind, but the kind that brings reflection. For the first time, he wasn't an idol. He wasn't a performer. He wasn't the golden magne. He was John Jungkook, the man. And when the applause faded and the demands disappeared, he was left alone with the voice he had suppressed for over 10 years. And that voice, for the first time, screamed to be heard. "I don't remember when I stopped living for myself," the note allegedly reads in a quieter moment. "I only remember the pressure, the eyes, the rehearsals, the interviews, the rules, the fear, and the emptiness at the end of every show." It's a confession that carries the weight of millions. Because while fans across the globe chanted his name and celebrated his every move, who was there to ask if he was okay? And now, the scars are surfacing. Not physical ones, but emotional wounds inflicted not by hate, but by expectations. The expectation to always be perfect. The expectation to always be grateful. The expectation to always say yes. Did we ever give him a chance to say no? The aftermath of this leak has sparked global attention. Media outlets across continents are scrambling to confirm the authenticity of the note, but within fandom circles, the truth is already felt. Not everything needs a seal of approval to be believed. The emotion, the pain, the weight of those words, they feel unmistakably Jungkook. And that might be what scares the industry most, because this isn't just about one idol breaking down. It's about a generational voice choosing to break the silence. It's about the dangers of a system that prioritizes output over well-being, content over humanity. And it's about a fan base now reckoning with the uncomfortable truth that maybe, just maybe, the dream they supported cost their idol more than they ever realized. Within HYB headquarters, rumors swirl. Whispers of damage control. Talks of a future press statement. Some suggest they're preparing a pre-recorded interview, scripted carefully to dilute the narrative, to frame it as a misunderstood emotional moment. But will Jungkook allow that this time? According to one anonymous source from within the agency, Jungkook has changed. He's no longer the boy who nodded at every instruction. He's not angry. He's not rebellious. But he's clear. He's firm. He wants honesty now. And what happens when the most beloved idol in the world demands truth? The letter, if genuine, could be the beginning of a cultural reckoning far bigger than BTS or K-pop. It could open the floodgates for other artists to come forward. And if that happens, who will survive the fallout? Already, other idols, both active and retired, have posted cryptic messages online. A lyric here, a line of poetry there, all with an eerily similar tone. Exhaustion. One former group member posted simply, "We warned you. You didn't listen." What were they warning us about? One theory gaining traction is that Jungkook's note was not a moment of weakness, but a calculated act of courage. That it wasn't a mistake. That he knew it would be seen. That he wanted it to be seen. That it was his way of blowing the whistle without ever having to say a word. But why now? Some speculate that with military discharge approaching, Jungkook is reevaluating everything. The comeback, the future of BTS, his own place in music, and perhaps the most terrifying thought of all, for fans and executives alike, is that he might walk away. Not out of hate, not out of anger, but simply because he's tired of being someone else's product. How does the world prepare for BTS without Jungkook? Some say he's irreplaceable. Others say the show must go on. But in the eyes of armies who have followed his every move since 2013, the very soul of the group is bound to Jungkook's presence. His vocals, his energy, his essence. Could that really disappear? Or has it already been disappearing, one painful smile at a time? In another chilling excerpt from the alleged letter, Jungkook writes, "I watched myself on TV and didn't recognize the person anymore. I had become an idea, not a person." It's hard to imagine anything more haunting than that, because if the person we loved was just an idea, then where has the real Jungkook been hiding all this time, and what will it take to bring him back? Fans have rallied in support. The hashtag We Hear You Jungkook has trended for days, joined by others like hashtag Let Idols Rest, hashtag Break the System, and hashtag Golden Heart Not Golden Cage. The support is overwhelming, but also laced with guilt. Fans are beginning to ask hard questions about their role, about their expectations, about the way they romanticized every comeback, every sleepless night, every overworked moment. And the truth is beginning to cut deep. Maybe loving an idol means more than buying albums. Maybe it means protecting their soul. The heart of the storm is still one boy, one voice, one handwritten letter, and now the world waits for his next move, his next word, his next choice. Will Jungkook speak publicly? Will he confirm the note? Will he walk away, or will he return stronger? Not to reclaim his stage, but to reclaim himself. One thing is clear. The next chapter of Jungkook's life will not be written by managers, contracts, or carefully worded press releases. It will be written by him. And if this note was any indication, the world should prepare, not for a comeback, but for a rebirth.